You're listening to Podcast PXN, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo. Let's do this. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 22 of Podcast PXN. I am one of your hosts, Daniel Prindle, aka Dan is DTM on Twitter, and I am joined by the pride of PlayStation, Sean Babiak. Sean, we got a ton of new looks at games this week that I'm very excited for.
Surprisingly, a decently busy news week in games.
It really is. After last week really wasn't much in news.
I'm hoping that's going to continue the trend for the rest of the year, so we don't have to scramble for things.
I agree. Thank you to everyone watching live in the chat and participating as well. Just as a reminder, we are live each and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube. All you have to do is search Podcast PXN and you'll find us on there. Remember, the show always starts with the PXN News of the Week, so let's go ahead and jump right in. The first item we have on the PXN News of the Week, both Doom and Resident Evil 3 both got new trailers this week, and both of them look very freaking good.
And we also learned just a few minutes ago that the Resident Evil 3 trailer isn't a European trailer.
Yeah, it's a European release date. 3-4. Sean's like, wait. That got pushed up to March 4th. I was like, really? Because I saw a bunch of people complaining it's coming the week before Cyberpunk, and then we looked, and it was like, yeah, the EU version of the date.
I was super excited for March, and now I'm not excited for
Yeah, it's going to be a ridiculous April, to say the least. Starting with the new Doom trailer, that thing looks incredible. It just looks like more Doom 2016, obviously, with all those crazy kills and giant bosses and the limbs that you can shoot off. All of that looks awesome as well. I know you spotted some new things that we really didn't see in the last game, which was kind of like some cybernetic type things.
Yeah, it almost looks like you have a new type of enemy, such as like when you first popped in Halo 4 and played Prometheans. Yeah. And I don't even remember Halo 4 trailer showing them off, because I just remember being surprised. Now, obviously, I played it later on.
They did show it at E3.
They did, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looked a little different. Actually, that was the voiceover. I believe that character, she almost looked like an Egyptian goddess type thing, robot-wise, with demonic lettering on her hilt. Yeah. And it looked like she was giving the narration of the whole thing. You saw a demonic Doom guy or Doom Slayer that you were fighting like in an arena.
That guy looked badass.
Yeah.
That wasn't a cuss word.
That's in the Bible. You also saw a lot more verticality when it came to actually you playing as Doom Guy. Yeah. The fact that like he was kind of zipping around, it's probably a perk or something like that. Like they always do that stuff. They had perks in the last Doom game. So that's really cool to see, though, that you're not just looking for forward and backward. You're looking almost up and down, too, with everything. And then the sword. Like, there was a very graphic scene where he gets his sword, basically, slices a demon like 3 or 4 times. You just see everything, of course, because it's Doom.
Yeah.
So that's be very interesting in that type of game, because it is a more melee shooting type of game.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. He also has a switchblade that comes out of his left arm now.
Assassin's Creed.
Exactly.
He's going to sneak up on people.
So that's a cool thing to do when it comes, when the enemies get highlighted and you kind of go in.
Yep.
That's still the mechanic. I assume it is.
I assume so.
Yeah.
Everyone loved that.
It actually honestly got me a lot more pumped for the game.
Yeah.
Like a lot more pumped. Now, granted, my March game is gone. We'll talk about that later, but I'm pretty sure this is a game I'm going to be hunkering down now in March, because it's just looking more and more sick. Yep. I don't care about the multiplayer. Really don't. I don't even know if there's going to be any.
There is. It's a weird mix. Like the original Doom, actually, Certain Affinity, which is the head of Certain Affinity, was the multiplayer architect, essentially, of Halo 2.
Yeah.
And their team made the multiplayer for Doom 2016. This multiplayer is being made in-house by id Software. But the weird thing is it's not the traditional Doom multiplayer like Doom 2016 had. It's a like 2v2 mode or 2v1 mode or 3v1 mode, something like that. Where
so
one
it's
person,
not 4v1. We know that doesn't work out well.
One person plays the demon, and then you have your slayers or whatever. And it's kind of, I'm a little bit concerned about what that multiplayer is going to look like, but obviously you and I aren't necessarily concerned about that because we're just...
And a lot of the criticism from 2016's version of Doom was on the multiplayer side. They didn't really invest into it, and I don't think they had to.
Yeah.
I also forgot the pre-order bonuses for Neo 2 were announced. That comes out in March, so I got to second that. Doom's down my second. Wow. That's what I mean. Neo 2 is definitely going to be a banger to me.
Jeez. And also, the other new trailer we got was Resident Evil 3, which that freaking trailer, obviously it's being used in the Resident Evil 2 remake engine, which looks amazing. I've never played the original Resident Evil 3, but I can definitely imagine that this looks way better than the original ever could possibly have looked. And also, a Nemesis, I guess, has some different weaponry, as what you were saying.
Yeah, so in the original game on PlayStation 1, Nemesis carried a rocket launcher, equally terrifying, not just him being of his stature, but now it looks like he's going to have a flamethrower.
Yeah.
I was talking with this kid, Steven, at my work about it, and just like we were talking about how it's almost going to feel a little bit more terrifying. You saw a scene where Jill was running down a burning hallway, and he's still chasing after her, flamethrowing, and burning everything. So I mean, you can only imagine going down corridors and you're trying to escape, and he's just burning the entire thing, and it's getting harder and harder for you to escape.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's awesome. I honestly totally forgot. I was like talking to him. I was like, yeah, I thought it was Jill and Chris again. I forgot it's Jill and Carlos. They introduced this new guy, Carlos. You actually never see Carlos again in the series, if I remember correctly.
Right. Yeah,
so
not in the games.
Yeah, so it's just funny that I totally forgot about that, that who your playable character is.
Yep.
And then obviously the pre-order bonuses went live today for that too, as far as like you get the original PS1 outfit for Jill Valentine. I think somebody else too, but... Yeah, I mean, that game's going to be awesome. You're talking about the worry of now realizing that's going to be a week before Cyberpunk.
Yep, exactly. And remember, you also get Resident Evil Resistance with that as well, which it looks interesting, at least, and it's something added.
Yeah, it's obviously... I don't think it's going to be something that's multiplayer-wise tacked on. I think it is going to be something they've given time to. But a lot of people are going to be wary about a multiplayer Resident Evil given history.
Yeah, Operation Raccoon City.
Yes. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Obviously, Cyberpunk doesn't have multiplayer, and something else no longer comes out that might... deter it, even though I don't think it was a deterrent anyways, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit again.
Yep.
But still, that's a really good beginning of April for a crazy month of April.
Yeah, and I mean, it's safe to say that both Doom and Resident Evil 3 are both going to be rated E for everyone.
I was thinking KA. I don't even know if they do kids and adults.
Kids only. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, definitely going to be M-rated games for sure. But... moving on, we have some news on the final Smash Brothers Ultimate character being revealed apparently tomorrow morning. I think it's going to be very early tomorrow morning. They're supposed to announce it. A lot of people on the internet right now are thinking it's going to be, this is all conjecture, thinking it's going to be Dante from DMC. The reason is one of the creative leads at Capcom had tweeted something out with the date, and it lined up with what Nintendo's announcing. So that's what people were kind of piecing together. So Dante, that'd be kind of cool. I don't feel like there's any other characters in Smash right now that are similar to
Bayonetta
Dante.
would be the closest, but obviously she's more hand-to-hand / witch and guns, and Dante has his trusty rebellion sword with him and guns.
Yep.
I don't know about this one. If I remember correctly, Dante was in PlayStation All-Stars. I'll have to double check on that, but I'm not saying it can't work because obviously they got Bayonetta to work because of her being obviously a mature rated character.
Yeah, you're correct.
He was in that?
Yeah.
Okay. But it was the DMC version of Dante.
The
it was
Ninja
not,
Theory version.
It was not the Capcom version.
Correct.
So I'd just be curious how he plays. I honestly don't think it's worth us even predicting because as Nintendo has shown throughout this whole DLC period, whatever you think they're going to choose, they're going to go in a different direction for you.
Wow.
What, Shirtless Dante?
Shirtless Dante. I got results of Shirtless Dante. I just wanted
to
know if he was in
PlayStation
All-Stars.
Just pulls off your history.
It definitely doesn't. It definitely doesn't.
But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting that that's kind of the rumor for it. Again, I don't think it's going to be Dante, but I don't think it's anybody that I could accurately predict.
Yeah.
There's also news of a BioShock collection coming to Switch as well.
Yeah.
I'm assuming tomorrow's a direct. I didn't look up into it. I'm assuming it's just a direct. I don't think it's a Smash direct.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it is just a direct.
Yeah, so there's obviously some leaks and rumors about a BioShock collection coming to the Switch, which I think that'd be really cool. It's not something I'm going to buy.
Right.
I already have those games on my PS3, and then I have them again on my PS4. I wanted that collection again. So, I mean, that's cool for the people that have not experienced them. They are, as far as from the originals, the ports itself into that collection were very good. I'm assuming whoever's doing it's going to do a great job with it as well. The thing I'm most excited about is if they announce this character tomorrow, are they going to announce also the Fighter Pass 2? Like, what's their timeline for that? Because I thought they did very well with this last timeline with it, too.
Yep, it is a Nintendo Direct that's happening tomorrow.
So we're probably going to get some Animal Crossing information, because that's coming out soon. I'm hoping something else, because honestly, right now, that's all we know first party-wise coming out for Nintendo this year.
They did say that it's a 35-minute long live stream featuring an in-depth look at the upcoming DLC fighter. So I don't know if they mean the whole 35 minutes is going to be the DLC fighter. I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't think so either. Normally the directs are only like 20, 25 minutes, so that gives me hope that there's going to be some more things in there.
Yep.
I don't think they need to announce if Zelda's coming out this year.
No.
I'm good with them waiting. The only thing is I just want them to announce something else in their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Please, Metroid Prime Collection.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's something that people keep asking for. We have yet to hear anything of.
Everyone is begging for Metroid Prime Collection because Metroid Prime 4, everyone knows, is at least going to be
2022,
year and a half,
probably.
2 years. Yeah.
Since they rebooted it last year.
Yep.
So, yeah, we'll see what happens with everything.
Yep. Moving on, we have a couple game delays that were announced today. I don't know if both of them were today. I think
they were both yesterday. Both yesterday. Yep.
So these are kind of some big pushbacks as far as the titles, not necessarily both of them being long pushbacks.
Yeah.
But Final Fantasy VII was delayed about a month to April 10th. Obviously, we were talking about this before. Neither of us think this is very concerning because, I mean, it's a month. I mean, they just need a little more time.
I'm just thinking more or less polish. I don't think anything game-breaking is happening or anything to be alarmed about.
Yep.
I mean, you've waited this long for it at this point after being revealed in 2014.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not going to be that big of a deal. Everyone's still curious what it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
Actually, I was listening to Sam Claiborne on GameScoop last week and him talking about how he's kind of a little nervous because I remember this too. This is always my point, is that as people love to remember Midgar from Final Fantasy VII, as far as the city part, the floating city, it's really not a long section.
Right.
You're only there for about 4 hours. You fight a couple enemies, you escape from things, you go to a church, you cross-dress. That's about it.
And this game is supposed to be all Midgar, right?
Supposedly. If I remember right, that was the leak.
Yeah.
And now, granted, they're going to take some liberties with this whole thing, especially creating a completely new way to play this game.
Yeah.
But I don't know how it's going to be focused on this 4-hour part of the game for what you assume is probably going to be 40 to 50 hours.
Yeah. True.
So we'll see. But again, I'm not concerned at all about this delay.
No, agreed.
But this next one, maybe.
Yeah, the next one, Marvel's Avengers project. So Crystal Dynamics Avengers game has been pushed back to September 4th, which, if I remember right, this was supposed to be like April or March?
I thought it was late April or like May 20th.
Yeah, something like that. But it's getting pushed back several months, like at least 5 months, and I think that's very concerning. I know that there was a preview that a lot of outlets did not that long ago that people were high on it.
May 15th.
May 15th. Okay, so pushed back 4 months. People were high on the gameplay when it got previews not that long ago, but the thing is with previews, you don't see the entire game. You're seeing a chunk of gameplay that the developer wants you to see. So obviously they're going to show the best possible stuff they can show you to the press because they're trying to get their game in the hands of as many people as possible and get people pre-ordering it and such.
Yep, conversations, all that stuff.
Exactly. So I do agree with you. I think this is a little concerning. It's not necessarily the nail in the coffin or anything like that, but it's something to keep your eye on and see, how this unfolds over the next few months and see if they show us more. Because really, we haven't really seen a whole lot from the game.
No, I mean, you saw, obviously, where you could play the 4 characters going along, and then when they announced Miss Marvel, you saw her as well. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty much it. There's 2 things that really are concerning for me for this. Are they still trying to look for their identity? Because that's always kind of been a confusing platform that they've been trying to sell on customer base.
Right.
And the second thing is, I believe for this size of game and for the essential post-launch details that they've announced, I think this is a little too close to getting to next gen.
Yeah.
We presume, I think correctly, that next gen is in the fall. Mm-hmm. Xbox already we know, but PlayStation hasn't definitively said holiday, but we assume.
We know, yeah.
But I think that's a little too close to the new consoles. Now we know that the game's going to work on these newer consoles.
Right. Backwards compatibility.
I think we keep talking and kind of going in circles when it comes to mixed messaging from both a little bit of PlayStation, a little bit of Xbox. I think this is coming from like the gaming developer too, like. Hey, get this new game. You'll be able to play it on your new consoles.
But it's an old game, yeah. And the other thing is like, who opens their Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5 and says, oh, let's go play Avengers that came out 2 months ago?
Yeah, that's obviously going to be the thing. You're going to want to play Halo Infinite. I'm going to play... I don't know,
Horizon
Godfall,
1 Dawn.
Yeah. I'm going to want to play whatever Sony exclusive. I mean, hell, if it's a Resogun 2, I'm there.
Right.
But, yeah,
That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
We haven't heard anything from House Marquee in a long time.
No, the only thing that we know is that they're working on something that's not an arcade shooter.
Are they owned by Sony?
Nope.
So
just essentially have a second party contract for it.
Are they continuing that into the next generation?
I don't know. I mean, the last game was Daemon Ex Machina, if I remember right.
Gotcha.
But I mean, we know the only confirmed game that we have is whatever the Gollum game is, and then also Godfall for PS5.
Yep.
Xbox is at 3 confirmed with
Gollum,
Halo Infinite, and then Hellblade. Not a launch game. It's specifically said by Phil.
Definitely not.
But yeah.
And sort of Forza, but not really. I mean, it's heavily rumored, and obviously they showed that 2 seconds of Forza in that teaser trailer for Series X.
Their last game was a game called Storm Divers, which I don't remember.
Storm Divers?
Yeah, I don't remember that.
When did it come out?
In 2019.
Wow. Okay. I had no idea that came out. So
yeah. Well, no, it didn't come out. It actually didn't.
Oh.
Yeah. Next Machina, not Daemon Ex Machina. That's a Switch game.
Gotcha.
And Matterfall came out.
Gotcha.
The last time they had a game on them was a port of Angry Birds Trilogy that they had on the Xbox and stuff.
Yeah.
They've had Xbox partnerships before.
Right.
But yeah, primarily the last 2 generations has been PlayStation. So interesting to see.
Yeah. Moving on, we've got a news story about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order again. This one is very interesting because apparently Lucasfilm, who's like the whole, overseer of the Star Wars universe, essentially.
Marvel Studios of Star Wars.
Yes, exactly.
To put in context for today's generation.
Yeah. Lucasfilm initially wanted Respawn to make a first-person shooter instead of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which is a third-person action-adventure game. And apparently they initially had told them that they specifically need to avoid Jedi and lightsabers. So, literally the complete opposite of the game they made is what Lucasfilm wanted them to make initially, which is crazy. That blows my mind because you already have so many of those Star Wars games like Battlefront. I mean, in the history of Star Wars games, there's always been some kind of shooter that has been attached already. Expand your horizons, Lucasfilm.
Yeah, I mean, Jedi Knight had as first person had lightsabers and had blasters and everything like that. One, I'm glad that whoever it was changed their mind, or maybe it was.
It sounds like Stig was the one who was pushing heavily for them to, like, we need this. We need this to happen.
I mean, obviously, it worked out very well in Respawn's favor and Star Wars' favor, with it being a critically received game for everything.
Yep.
I just can't believe they would think, given how the EA license has gone with Star Wars, that they thought it was a smart move to continue going in the realm of non-lightsabers.
Yeah.
Like, same thing, like, so, you've heard that Rian Johnson, who is the much maligned director of Jedi, or The Last Jedi, has given his own, like, Star Wars trilogy. And they want it away from the Skywalker series, and they don't want it to include Jedi and all this stuff. I don't know if that's, like, what people want, though. I don't, and I am good with getting away from, like, the Skywalker saga, as they call it now, but, like, people love the Jedis. Like, kids love pretending they're a Jedi with this laser sword or whatever, and the fight between good and evil. Like, they just love that. I mean, it's something tangible, too, that you can, especially toys. So that's where Star Wars makes its money, is toys. Like, why would you try to go away from that?
And that's the root of Star Wars, like the Jedi versus the Sith.
Exactly.
That's literally what Star Wars is.
Yeah, so I thought that's an odd choice that they wanted them to do. Yeah. I'm just glad they did not listen. They came out with a very excellent game. They did their own thing while copying or taking away from other games too. I know you and I disagree on some of the stuff with it, but overall they did a very good job. I personally think they have a series on their hand that we'll see in next gen.
Oh yeah, easily
from Respawn.
As long as EA doesn't lose the license before then.
That's true, but I don't know if I have a feeling when it comes out licensed, since Star Wars is owned by Disney. And it was owned after the fact of the EA deal, I think, or maybe during the fact, because Disney Infinity was still going on. Yeah. That they'll do exactly what they're doing with Marvel. That they'll give certain developers the game as long as they're selling what they're going to do with it. Yeah. Just like Marvel's Avengers, Crystal Dynamics, Insomniac has Spider-Man, all these different parts going on.
And even like Marvel Ultimate Alliance on Switch.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I was trying to think of that developer, but
I can't think of them either. So moving on from that, we've got our next news story, which
do you want to do that one first and then end with those two?
Ragnarok?
Yeah.
Ragnarok next? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one we have is Assassin's Creed Ragnarok has some new leaks, which I know you love leaks. So this is our only leak this week, essentially.
No, well, I did bring up Bioshock.
You did, yes. So
I'll get confirmation by that hopefully tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, okay.
There's a new leak suggesting that Assassin's Creed Ragnarok, which is the code name for the Vikings Assassin's Creed game, is cross-gen, which isn't a surprise. That's coming next fall, supposedly. Co-op and contains the biggest open world yet. So essentially, this sounds very similar to the same situation that we were in when Assassin's Creed Unity came out, because they said some of the same things. The biggest world we've ever created, co-op being added, drop-in, drop-out co-op, and cross-gen. Well, cross-gen's the only thing that doesn't apply to
obviously,
Unity.
yeah.
But this is very exciting for me, because the one thing I really liked about Unity was doing the missions where you play co-op, because like you had different ways that you could approach the different situations that they set up, and those things were like super cool. The downfall to Unity was all of the glitches and all of the problems with the game kind of clouded that great co-op implementation.
That was the internet glitches too. I had no issues.
Right.
There was always obviously the talk can be a lot louder than the actual problem for it.
Which you were on PS4, I was on Xbox One. There was tons of freaking problems.
Okay, yeah. See, I didn't have anything.
Yeah, there was a lot of frame tearing and a lot of frame rate issues. So there was a lot of technical problems with Unity, and the online stuff I feel like was shrouded in all of the problems that Unity had. It was just clouded in that, and I feel like that's such a disappointing thing, because they never went back to co-op. Like, it's been literally 6 years since Assassin's Creed Unity came out, 2014, and we haven't had co-op in Assassin's Creed since then. That's crazy.
The worst part is we haven't had multiplayer since Black Flag.
Yeah.
And I loved
that.
multiplayer.
Was fun. Yes.
My friend Chris and I, like, he actually kept buying them every year after Brotherhood came out just to play the multiplayer, and he never played the stories. But, like, the multiplayer was so much fun. I don't understand why they went away from it. I mean, maybe they didn't see the audience that they were hoping, but gosh, was that fun.
It was so original.
It was,
That was what was cool about it. It wasn't the same thing that you've always experienced. Like, it was something new, and that was
like,
super
my
cool.
favorite thing was, like, going into a group of three other people, disguising yourself as them, they attack somebody else, and then you just stab them right when they're doing their move.
And I guess the problem is Assassin's Creed single player wise isn't the same type of game anymore.
No, that's very true.
So they don't use any of those same things like blending in a crowd and disguise and all that.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. It'll be. I mean, this is first off the worst kept secret in the business. We know during the NBA playoffs we're gonna find out everything about this.
Yeah.
Like we always do.
Right.
I think that is a little jarring to me, just because given the audacity and the scope of Odyssey is saying it's the biggest open world again.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe if they increase it by a foot, I'm not as scared. But like,
Odyssey is so big.
Yeah, telling me that, and I loved both Origins and Odyssey. I know you did too.
Yep.
But this is next gen time. I don't want to just focus all on one game. I know you're actually kind of the opposite because you just want to focus on Halo Infinite. But like, to have an amazing game plus another probable amazing game for you is going to be like, oh shit, what do I play tonight?
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, so it's going to be a little much for you.
Especially since Odyssey, you have to spend like literally hundreds of hours to see all of Odyssey. Like, it's insane the amount. I'd love to see someone who's 100%ed Odyssey and see how many hours they have, because it's just gigantic.
Oh, it is, yeah. I hope, obviously, I would love the whole Icelandic view of it, or Nordic, just to see what happens, especially since they started creating like mythical monsters in this whole thing with the Minotaur in the last one, and Medusa, if I remember right. So I think it's going to be a really cool game.
Yeah.
I just eventually still do want to go to China, and not in the 2D sense either.
Right, yeah. They did have that side scroller, but moving on, news story that I don't think was necessarily surprising to me, but there's a reason why I don't think it's surprising. So the news story is Xbox won't have next-gen exclusives for a year after launch. So traditionally, brand new consoles, you have games that are exclusive to the next-gen consoles that are first-party games, such as Dead Rising 3 was an exclusive for Xbox One.
Dead Rising 3, Rise,
Forza 6, 5.
And then they had something else, too. They had 4. Because I remember it was a competition between them and Sony, and they had one more than Sony.
Trying to think what else they had. I don't remember. But anyways, normally you have that kind of experience to draw people to your platform, and I presume that Sony will still do that with PlayStation 5, that they will continue on that trend of having exclusives for PS5 at launch. So the reason why this wasn't surprising to me is Microsoft's strategy ever since Phil Spencer has taken over has been about Xbox as a service and not as a console. The thing we always think about when we say Xbox now is like Xbox One or Xbox 360 or Xbox Original.
How many times have you turned on your Xbox?
Yeah, exactly. Xbox on. So like we're thinking of it as a console. Microsoft doesn't think about it like that. Microsoft thinks about it as a platform now, because it's on Windows, it's on Xbox One. You have Xbox Series X coming. So their thing is they don't care where you buy the game. They just want you to buy the games that they're putting out. And Game Pass is kind of that tool for them to push out their games. So they want to push Game Pass because it's a games as a service type deal. So you pay $10 a month and you're continuously giving them that money rather than spreading it out throughout the year. So obviously, if you get a Series X, if you're a console gamer, you get Series X and you're going to have a better experience on there than you would on an Xbox One or even on an Xbox One X. But if you want to play it on PC, cool. If you want to play it on whatever, that's the other thing. I was listening to Unlocked this week, and Dustin Legary said on there, which Dustin sometimes gets on my nerves because he gets a little goofy. But anyways,
he's very hateful of PlayStation. That's the only thing that gets me sometimes.
He's really doofy sometimes. But anyways, he made the comment, well, I may not even buy the Xbox Series X at launch because I have such a high-powered PC that all their games are coming to PC. And that's the thing, like, Microsoft doesn't care if you buy it on PC. Like, that's their whole initiative. They don't care where you play the games, and xCloud is another implementation of that. They just want you to play the games because at the end of the day, the games make the most money, and 9 times out of 10, the consoles they actually make a loss on, at least initially.
Yeah, in the first year, it's always, except for Nintendo, are the only ones that ever either break even or make a profit in the first year.
So the last thing I'll say about this, you can say what you want to say as well. The last thing I'll say is it's going to be very interesting to see if necessarily Microsoft's strategy is more successful than Sony's strategy, which is more of a traditional style of releasing a new console. I think too often we try to compare the two and say, like, what is this versus this, whereas both strategies could be good strategies for each company and not necessarily have a negative impact on the gamer because we're still getting the games that we want to play. So, like, at the end of the day, I don't care as long as we're getting the games that we want to play. That's personally my opinion.
So now, when I'm reading all this next-gen exclusives, that means something that is exclusive to the next-generation console that's not going to work on your Xbox One.
Correct.
Cool. Then I don't have any issues with it. Honestly, I think it's weird anyways if you're going to buy an Xbox Series X and, or I guess maybe not that because you wouldn't do it, but like I just think it's weird that that people would think that because you're buying whatever Xbox Series blah 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 game, and you were like, well, I'm just gonna play it on my Xbox One. I don't want to get a Series. Like, I don't know. I think that's almost like wanting your cake and eating it too type thing because you shouldn't be able to do that when it comes to these new generations. Maybe that is the old school in me. Like, I'm so used to not having backwards compatibility, especially as a Nintendo fanboy, because your cartridges could fit. But I just think it's very presumptive to think that I can play that game inside that older console. And why would you either? I mean, you want to experience the newest best thing on the newest and best thing. So
what they're... I think you might be confusing it, but what they're saying is the games that come out at launch on Series X will also be available.
No, that's what I assumed. But I mean, I'm talking a year after the fact.
I got you.
Yes.
I got you.
Yeah, because I understand in that first year, that is a good way to kind of keep people in your market. Because honestly, you might be preventing. IGN had this really good article this week about are you going to make a switch this generation? And that would actually prevent people from making a switch from Xbox to PlayStation just based on that fact alone. Yeah. If Sony doesn't offer that, but after that year, I don't think you should have that assumption anymore that you can still play that. I think that's at that point you have to realize that you have to invest in these new hardware.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And kind of moving on to Sony as well, a little bit of E3 news coming out for them. They are skipping E3 for the second year in a row. So, I guess...
Very interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. They are very much changing their approach to, I guess, marketing themselves. Obviously, it's interesting in that respect because Sony's going with a traditional decision for, creating a console launch and having exclusive games at launch. Microsoft's not doing that. But then Microsoft is very much staying traditional by staying at E3 and having their press conference, whereas Sony is not. So it's like they both are doing very different things, and one's doing one thing traditionally, one thing's doing the other traditionally. It's very weird.
And I don't think this year is like last year as far as it's never been obviously said. We always assume due to PlayStation or Sony themselves not having really anything to show off besides their normals when it came to the exclusives. And they continue to have their COD deals and all that stuff.
Don't you steal my Halo.
But I don't think it's this year where they don't have much to talk about. Obviously, it's the opposite. They have a lot to talk about. Xbox has a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
My thinking is I think they're actually seeing a lot of success via state of play, and I know you actually have a different thought too.
Yeah.
But my thinking is they've seen a lot of success of state of play, more so than I anticipated, and that's going to be the best way to kind of get their messaging across.
Yeah.
Something that you and I have alluded to is that a lot of times during that console launch, it's not your hey mom, let's get this console for the family type thing. It's like, hey, Daniel, you and I are hardcore gamers. We're going to get the next console. We want the newest and best thing. So that's where you get your million launch numbers from.
Yep.
But your thing was actually completely different as far as your thought for them.
Yeah, so my thing is I love E3 every year. I get excited about E3, like having a week dedicated to games and gamers, and I love doing that. And on my personal YouTube channel, I've been doing it the last 4 years, where I do predictions for each publisher that has their own conference at E3. I love doing that every year because it's so exciting to see what everyone's going to show off. So my thing is, I hope that this isn't a permanent change for Sony, and hopefully it's just this year they have so much to show that they don't want to necessarily bog down E3 even more, because obviously Microsoft's going to be there, and they've already said they're going to have a whole bunch of stuff that they're going to have to talk about for Series X and all their games. So I just hope in the future we can all still be watching E3 as an event. E3 as a actual convention that you go to has declined over the last 3 or 4 years in general anyways, but as an event that you're watching online, Microsoft doesn't have a show floor presence anymore, but they still have their E3 press conference, and they're literally walking distance from the LA Convention Center at the Microsoft Theater is where they do their event where they let you play the games and everything that they showed off at their press conference. So I hope that doesn't go away, just because of how much I love E3 and look forward to it every year. And you can always pigeonhole it 6 months E3, 6 months later Game Awards, and it's this perfect cadence, in my opinion, of just waiting a long period of time to get these big announcements. So
yeah, it's certainly an odd time in E3 if we think it's going to continue. It's going to be basically the same thing. So I don't know what the future holds, honestly, for E3 or how both of these consoles are going to message everything. I honestly think, regardless of what happens, I believe both will have a very successful launch. I don't think we're anywhere near anybody's console war coming to an end. I mean, it's been proven, obviously, that this is a different console war than the Nintendo versus Sega, because Sony and Microsoft actually play nicer than Nintendo and Sega ever did.
Yeah.
So I think that they're both fine with it, and Nintendo being kind of like the little brother in a sense too. But I do think it's interesting how E3 is changing. I mean, maybe they might take a break for a year like they did in the early I think it was 97 to 2001 or something like that, where they didn't have an E3. Maybe rehash some people getting excited for it or something like that. I don't know. I can't make that judgment call.
Yep.
I know a lot of stuff, though, is PAX always do well.
Yep.
For the most part. But a lot of things people like to see, online, so I would kind of like that transition too, as far as maybe just you still have a press conference, you still show the media everything, but that's all it is just press conferences.
Yep, I agree. So that ends our news of the week. So moving on to games we are playing, I've been playing Donkey Kong.
We have a Switch week, bro.
Yes, we have.
This is a Switch week.
This is a rarity. Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze on Switch. So I got this for Christmas, and I just started playing it, and I actually have been having some fun with it. I have had some fun with it. I have some problems with it that annoy me. Some of the boss battles were getting very frustrating.
It is an incredibly difficult platform.
Yeah, and let me just preface this with, I started the game up where the game told me that it has this other mode, the Cranky Kong mode or
funky mode.
Funky mode. Yeah, that makes the game basically easier. And I've been playing on that mode, and I've still gotten frustrated.
Imagine how it was on the Wii U, man.
Yeah, exactly. I would not want to experience that. So, like, I really like the overall game. Like, I like the environments. I like a lot of the puzzles and a lot of the movement between the levels, and I like the timing aspect as well. Like, there's a lot of like barrels you go in, and you have to time things perfectly. I like collecting the bananas to get your puzzle pieces and stuff like that. It's cool to find puzzle pieces that you didn't expect to find them in a certain spot. That's really cool. I like the rhino. I like the idea of the rhino, but I hate the rhino parts. It drives me insane. A lot of the rhino parts piss me off because you jump and then he jumps right into the hole and you're like, are you kidding me? So, yeah, overall, I like the game. It's definitely not like I don't love it, like I'm in love with it, but I definitely like it.
It's not my favorite platform, and it's not at all my favorite Donkey Kong game, but it was a fun game. Incredibly frustrating game, but a fun game for it, so I agree with that. And obviously more Halo Reach for you, I'm guessing?
Oh, yeah. Obviously, I didn't put it on here, but yes.
It goes without saying until the dawn of time, I guess, at this point.
Pretty much, until Halo Infinite.
Yeah. So I have two. One's a demo. So they have the demo out for an indie game called Ape Out. Very interesting demo or game where you play it. First off, the art style is more or less like a super hot art style. You play from a top-down isometric style, and you are basically an ape trying to escape a labyrinth with people that were basically experimenting on you in your way, shooting at you and all this stuff. And it was a pretty cool thing because, first off, it's technically 2D gory as hell. But I liked how you actually moved like an ape, as far as like you have like just those spurts whenever you lunge type thing, like how you see in movies or like on shows and stuff. The enemies were actually pretty smart, where like you'd peek around a corner, and because you're an ape and so large, it actually they would kind of see you go around, or they'd go around the other way to try if you were going to try to like basically outsmart them, and they'd show up there. So I like that. The top down actually gave you a really cool perspective from the doors and the shattered glass and all that stuff. It's not probably a game I'm going to buy unless there's an eShop sale, which there still is a giant one going on. But it was a very interesting game. The main game that I want to talk about is Guacamelee 2. So fun. I mean, I actually really like it, minus the story, better than the original. I still think the story in the first one is really good, but just the comedy aspect. So it is exactly like Guacamelee. So I'm not going to say they reinvented the wheel with anything. But they do have a couple new power-ups. You use the chicken mode a lot more, and a lot more hilarity ensues because of that, too. The references are just ridiculous. You go to one world, like, it's all about, like, saving the Mexiverse. So you keep going in between the universe of, like, different games, and one of them is you go into this world, and it's just a guy on a essential beach park with a brand new Ferrari or Mustang, and he's talking about, oh man, this is my car, I just bought this, I'm so excited for it, and instantly Juan gets super mad at it, like Street Fighter, and then you beat up the car and you get like bonus coins for it. So it has a Street Fighter reference. I don't know if you remember Street Fighter. In between bosses or characters that you fought, you would beat up a car.
I've never played a Street Fighter.
Okay. So, not even 4 on Xbox?
No.
Okay. So, it was just hilarious. They also had this level called the Dankiest Universe, and all it was literal internet comments from people that complained about why they're not going to play Guacamelee 2, and what's so wrong with playing Guacamelee 1, because they had a lot of memes in Guacamelee 1.
Yeah.
So they took those literal comments, put them in the game, and like actually had you like, it was supposed to be it was supposed to torture you the whole time. And like finally when you get out there, like, oh my gosh, you survived that torture. You must be the chosen one.
Oh god.
And I'm just like dying laughing playing that. I mean, it was so much fun. It's a Metroidvania that I want. I'm actually still playing it, still trying to beat the challenges. A lot more difficult to platforming as far as getting the unlockables. So finding everything is a lot more difficult. You definitely switch between living in dead a lot more than you did in the first game, and it's used to your advantage and disadvantage with platforming as well, more so. But I could not recommend this game enough. I'd love for you to give it a try, especially with really nothing starting for this year till March. Yeah, Ori's our first thing coming up. So I would.
Does that come out before Doom?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Ori, I think, is the 7th.
Ooh.
Because I remember it was coming out the same day as Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so really, really excited that game. I hope it's honestly something that Drinkbox continues.
Yep.
I enjoyed the hell out of it, so pick it up if you get a chance.
Yeah, cool. Moving on to Game of the Year. So this is our topic of the show. We've had a lot of discussion about this. Somebody still hasn't played Resident Evil 2 Remake, but, you know.
In my defense, I played Guacamelee 2 that came out in 2019.
That's true. All right, I'll give it to you. Resident Evil 2 Remake. Let's just start there for me. Resident Evil 2 Remake started the year, and it was absolutely amazing, and I think a lot of people were excited for it, but I don't think anyone had the idea that it was going to be as good as it was. And the thing about that game is I've never played the original. So, like, I can't compare the original to the new one and say, hey, this is different and this is different. But the thing is, as a standalone game that I've never played before, it was absolutely incredible. It felt like a game that was made in 2019, even though it was a remake of a beloved original game. Everything about that game just was... essentially, it was the earliest Metroidvania type game that you experience in, you know, third person perspective, as opposed to, you know, whatever you do in Metroid. I've never played Metroid, so I don't even know.
You're wrong on that, but okay, I'll go with you. That's the earliest game you played as Metroid? That's not a Metroidvania.
No. I mean, like, if I was... Sorry, I worded that poorly. If I was to play Resident Evil 2 back in the day, that probably would have been the first game that would have been like a Metroidvania that I would have experienced, I guess is what I was going for there. But, yes, I know there was plenty of...
You don't get power-ups in Resident Evil 2, you just have puzzle
keys,
pieces. Yeah,
puzzles, yes.
And Metroidvania is more or less just grab by power-ups.
True.
But I get I get the route
has
you're
that
going
idea.
Down. I get the route you're going down.
And I actually hated some of the doors that you had to unlock in Resident Evil 7. Yeah, 7. Some of the puzzles in Resident Evil 7 I really did not like. Overall, I liked Resident Evil 7, but some of those things really annoyed me. Resident Evil 2, I never got that impression, and I never felt like I was lost, so to speak. Like, the one thing I could point to is when you go into the police department, like, storage area, and I'm looking at this keypad that has buttons missing on it, and I'm like, how do I open these lockers? These buttons are missing. And then I walk down the line and I realize I can open one locker. So I press the buttons that are there and I open that one locker, get the stuff that's inside, and I'm like, how do I get the rest of this? And I'm like, oh, I have to get the rest of these buttons. So, like, stuff like that is just super cool. And Resident Evil 2 Remake is definitely one of my games of the year, but not the game of the year. So, I don't know. Do you want to go back and forth, or do you want
I thought it was actually kind of good the way that we're, like, maybe talk about all of them in release date.
Okay.
And then at the end of it, say what our personal game of the year was for everything.
That works.
So the next game that came out kind of chronologically was Apex Legends.
Yeah.
Now, I think maybe actually Apex is a little bit before, but it had a stumbling block the first, like, week.
Yep.
But obviously this is the game I couldn't get enough of. Constantly kept playing. It proved yet again that Respawn can do anything with first-person shooters and make it excellent.
Oh, yeah.
They really changed the game when it came to battle royales and how they're thought of, especially this team perspective of 3 squad mates. They consistently keep supporting this game. Mm-hmm. The characters are pretty original with their powers for the most part.
Oh, yeah.
They're very identifiable. You know who you like. I'm a Pathfinder guy. Like, that's my guy. I love zipping around.
Yep.
And it's just the map, while it was only one for the first, like, 7 months, it was a giant map because of verticality. Like, I know there was comparisons with the Fortnite map, and I guess they kind of did a weird thing where they actually compared them, and it was bigger just because of the area that you could go with, being on King's Canyon and everything. So just a fun game. You had like Lifeline, Bloodhound, Bangalore, all of them. I know their season 4 comes out here in a little bit. I think next month. So just a really fun game, just solidifying more and more Respawn. Honestly, I mean, that was their first banger of the year.
Yeah.
And it's continued to do very well for them. I'm actually looking forward to getting back in Season 4. I told myself I'm not playing Season 3 at all, regardless of, like, the stuff that comes out. I just needed a break from that game.
But to be fair, Lifeline was the correct answer. You said the wrong thing. So
I liked Lifeline at first.
Yeah.
Because of how important health was, but then shields became more and more a thing.
Yeah.
And then getting away from firefights was such a big thing for us. So, like, whenever we were up top somewhere, I'd lay down a line, and then we'd go down, and then jump back up. That way we were away from everything as fast as we could.
I just liked making everyone give me their ultimate accelerants, and then I hoard the package to myself. Moving on, in order of release date, I guess, would be Control. That would be the next one. I think so, unless you have something else.
The only thing I'm not sure of is Gears.
That
Gears
was
release.
later.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so Control was the next one that came out. It came out in August. Absolutely amazing game. We both agree on this one. It's absolutely incredible. Every aspect of it, like when you get all of your powers, you feel very powerful, and like I said, that was my most fun part of the game is when you have all of your powers finally and you get to use all of them. Like, it's just such an amazing experience that I don't feel like Remedy gets enough credit for. I know they won Game of the Year, won IGN's Game of the Year, but I feel like they don't necessarily get the credit that they deserve.
Not commercially, unfortunately.
Right, and they've made such great games like Alan Wake. Quantum Break was very underrated, in my opinion. Like, they've made very good games. They just haven't necessarily hit that, like, one out of the park commercially.
And I thought this was, honestly, like, maybe the story can seem a little confusing at first with how it's told. I actually really enjoyed how it was told in that sense. Maybe I'm too much into the Westworld Witcher vibe type thing. But it just, how everything was, how, oh my gosh, I played so many hours and now I can't think of the main character's name. Crap. But anyways, her.
Yeah, I can't either.
I know, I'm trying to think of it.
It's not Hope, or no?
I kept thinking it was like Laura or something like that.
Man, this is awful. How do we not remember that?
Yeah, that's what I'm like thinking. Like, I played so long.
Jesse,
Jesus.
Gosh.
But everything with it, like finding out, like, I guess the biggest surprise to me, and I talked about this a few weeks ago when I actually finally played it, was you're in an office building the whole game. Like, not a lie. That is what it is.
Yeah.
But yet, it felt so different in all these areas that it did not ever feel like it like hurt the game itself.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just such a awesome experience. I mean, the powers, you truly felt very powerful. The only having one gun thing was actually something that was really cool.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that, like, I thought it was going to kind of be a hindrance, like, okay, I only have this one thing, but it actually really helped me because for the most part, I used more of my powers than I did my guns. My guns were just to set me up. My powers are what really helped me out. I really hope this gets a sequel. It's set up perfectly for a sequel. Obviously, it's tying Alan Wake into probably the DLC with everything, which made sense, too, with how the story was constructed.
Yep.
But yeah, I wish I actually played it sooner during the release to be part of that conversation. But I love that game.
Agreed. So the next one is actually Gears 5.
Gears 5, okay.
What you just asked about. Gears 5, to me, felt like the story was so impactful and very surprising. Gears 4 laid the groundwork for these new characters and their new interactions with JD and Kate and Dell. And I really felt like Gears 4 made you care about those new characters. And they didn't just, introduce these new characters and say, hey, here's some new characters. They went full-fledged like Star Wars, the new trilogy has done with Rey and Finn and Poe and all the new characters like them. They introduced them with the established characters like Marcus and like Baird and all of the original cast that you remember. And that's such a smart way to transition to a new generation. And Gears 5 really takes what you did in Gears 4 and makes you make some very difficult decisions. There's a decision that you have to make at the end of the game that will impact Gears 6. And it was something that I wrestled with. I sat there for like a solid 30 seconds looking at the screen like, what am I going to do here? Like, it was very impactful as far as the future of the series, and it'll be interesting to see how they take the actions, like if they're going to do like a Mass Effect approach where your decisions will, go into Gear 6, or if they choose one of the situations and then make that canon, so to speak.
But, yeah, I remember Infamous obviously did that with you actually you had to have the good ending in the first game for it to continue on, more or less.
Exactly. Essentially that's what I loved about Gears 5. So
and that was the only Xbox exclusive that came out, right? This past year?
I believe so.
Yeah, because no one wants to remember Crackdown 3.
No. Yeah.
So the next game that we have is Borderlands 3. And surprisingly, you got on this train too. Mostly I say surprisingly because of your hate for the CEO.
Yeah.
But I thought this was a very competent and well-made sequel.
Yeah.
The story wasn't as memorable or anything like that as Borderlands 2. Yeah. But obviously, I became addicted to this game. I put a solid 3 days worth of game time in this game. I still haven't gotten back to the DLC, but I really do want to. Chris just texted me the other day saying he beat it, and it was a lot of fun. But I loved that it was honestly more the same. And a lot of times you don't like that in a sequel. Yeah. I get that, but Borderlands is what it is, and it knows what it is too. It is more or less the first-person Diablo. That Absolutely. Is a shooter. Diablo doesn't really need to reinvent the wheel for the most part either. You just keep going back, trying to get better loot, cooler guns, and everything like that. Mm-hmm. So I really thought that was like a really cool thing to do, as far as like to kind of go back into that world. You had actually characters from Telltale Borderlands, or Tales from the Borderlands itself, but Telltale's version. So I thought that was a really sweet kind of throwback to it, because you actually even mentioned that to me, and I didn't even realize it. It was like, oh, Reese, that's right, I forgot.
It was essentially like, it was almost like a Avengers Endgame level of Borderlands, because it was like every character that's ever been in Borderlands is all together.
Yeah, it was just a culmination. It was kind of a sweet way to wrap up the story in that sense. I don't know if we'll get another one. I know it's super successful, so I would assume we are.
I know Randy Pitchford loves money, and I know he's going to exploit the crap out of it.
Exactly. I'm excited for what the DLC holds for this year.
Yeah.
Definitely one of my favorites. I say keep doing what you're doing with that. I could care less if it's honestly more of the same again. It's just so nice to have that little... It was almost like a stress reliever. Like, it's not something I'm going in to listen to. Like, you're just talking about how impactful Gears' story was to you this time around.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice that, like, I just played a similar game as far as a shooter game where I could care less about the story. I just liked having fun. The co-op worked very well, too. Especially this time around having 3 friends play instead of it was just me and Chris, because our friend Emily played with us. She never played a single Borderlands game. Was very easy to jump in for her. And it was just so much fun just trying to survive, more or less.
I'm curious, did she like it, like not knowing like the characters and having attachments to the characters? She liked it?
Because she went into the same notions too, because it's kind of what Chris and I prepared her for, is like, there's a story going on. I couldn't tell you what the story's going on. I don't really care. There's going to be some funny jokes thrown in there. But you're really just in it for, like, she's like us as far as like, okay, better gun. I want that better gun. Yeah. Or, hey, I see something more. I'm going to buy that type of thing. Like, it's that addicting thing where you're not actually spending real money. You're spending the game currency.
Yep.
And you just want the next better and better thing.
Yep.
And the fact that they went wild with the guns. Like, I finally did get that gun that shot other guns.
Yeah.
Which
is bonkers.
Yeah. So it's like just really cool, like how much detail went into that game.
Yeah. So I think the next one is actually Outer Worlds.
Yes.
So Outer Worlds, this game captured my attention from the beginning. So I was extremely excited when Microsoft acquired Obsidian, just because of what they did with South Park, The Stick of Truth, and with Fallout New Vegas. Like, those 2 games alone just make me all in on Obsidian. I love those 2 games. They are really masters at the RPG. And Outer Worlds is literally the perfect mix-up of like Mass Effect and mainly Fallout New Vegas. And it really makes you feel like you're playing a great Fallout game again, especially after Fallout 76 came out last year and Bethesda basically slapped Fallout fans in the face.
Continue to slap them in the face.
Yeah, exactly. Saying, oh, hey, this is a Fallout game. You may not want this, but we're going to give it to you. Here it is. And it's an online survival game. It's like, this isn't Fallout. This isn't what people want from Fallout. So for Obsidian to deliver something that is so Fallout-esque, like, I think this hit on so many levels for me because I missed Fallout so much. And Fallout 4, for me personally, wasn't as good as Fallout 3 in New Vegas. So, like, I was waiting for something that would scratch that itch, and Outer Worlds absolutely delivered on all levels on that front. So
I wish it was a game that I could get into, and I know technically we skipped 2 games as far as Sekiro and Devil May Cry 5. I really did enjoy the time I had with those games. I didn't give them enough fair shake, I think, in the end. Because I actually, obviously, Sekiro won Game of the Year at the Game Awards. But just like this, there are certain games that are going to grab you and hold you. Maybe you're just in the mood for something different at that time. Yeah. You might want to get back to it. You might not. I mean, obviously, recently, I've been just addicted to my Metroidvanias. I mean, there was Ori. Yes. I played Hollow Knight again, the last 2 Guacamelee. So it's what you're feeling at that point. You were craving this type of RPG. Yes. And so luckily it's something that you actually got.
Yeah. Games are very much like whatever you're feeling in the moment. Like, I could have a day where I really want to play a story-based game, and I could have a day where I just want to sit down and mindlessly play something. Like,
the next one that I have for us is Luigi's Mansion 3. Ooh. Came out on Halloween of the last year. So we went into great detail. We both played this and beat this. We both had our challenge with 2 bosses.
Yes. Yes.
But Chris actually, he did not have a challenge with yours. He had a challenge with mine.
Oh, really? He told
me, yep. So you're the one that can get that one, but
somehow
you couldn't get the Egyptian one.
No.
So I love that it was more or less, it was a much more expanded Luigi's Mansion than the last 2. A lot longer, too. I mean, it was actually a pretty long game.
Yes.
About 15 hours, 20 hours for me if you wanted to collect everything. Right. I love the cuteness of just all the characters together. I mean, Mario's always, even in a spooky-ish game, it's still going to make you feel like a very family-friendly oriented. Yep. I like the new power-ups. Maybe some of the times the suctions weren't as intuitive to control.
I see what you did there. Control.
Yeah.
Which is another game that has a lot of elevators. Yeah. That's the thing that's so good about Luigi's Mansion. It has like so many floors, but every floor feels different.
It does, yeah. It's insane that obviously it's a Mario game, so you can take any liberties, but you weren't really in the same spot. The bosses were, for the most part, pretty different too, especially with the strategy you had to go to actually attack them. There were some areas that kind of got a little tricky. You had to figure out, okay, how I want to do this puzzle, or how can I do this puzzle. But overall, probably the best Luigi's Mansion in my mind. Yeah. I have a feeling it's probably going to be solidified with a lot of other people's too. And I honestly wish that there were going to be some sort of DLC. I doubt there is for this game. Yeah. But I'm hopeful that we won't have to wait another like 10 years for a Luigi's Mansion 4.
Agreed.
So, really good game.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, we could both talk about this last one, since we know. So, the last one we have on there is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So, we actually just talked about this today. Can't kind of stop singing Respawn's praises when it comes to this stuff. I mean, now they're an expert in first-person shooters, and now they know how to make a third-person action game. This game really made you feel like a Jedi with a story that you cared about. Maybe not so much Cal Kestis, but the rest of the characters. I know you had some issues with the combat, but I personally just loved the combat. I loved the feel that it gave me with everything. It was a beautiful game. Pretty good length. A major spoiler that unfortunately got ruined for everybody thanks to commercials. But that was a
very cool moment.
It was an amazing moment. Yeah, I'm glad you and I did not have that spoiled for us. But yeah, this was such a fun game to have, especially at the end of the year.
Absolutely.
For everything.
And the force powers and the lightsabers, everything felt perfect and authentic. And It felt very much like, it almost felt like a spiritual successor to the Force Unleashed games, except with a better story.
What Force Unleashed could have been.
Yes, essentially, yeah. And yeah, I can't say enough about what Respawn has done. Obviously, we've sung their praises a ton.
My favorite music of the year.
Yeah.
Obviously I love Star Wars music, but my favorite soundtrack of the entire year.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So can we just agree that 2019 was the year of Respawn?
Pretty much.
I mean,
yeah. In that sense, yeah. So those are essentially 10 that we kind of came together for. So out of all those, Daniel, do you have a pick for Game of the Year?
Yes, I do. And
okay.
I spoiled it 2 weeks ago if anyone was listening.
Yeah,
but yes, Outer Worlds is my Game of the Year. Obviously, for all the reasons I stated, perfect game at the perfect time. And I cannot wait to see Obsidian make a sequel to that game. Like, they laid a perfect base for that. And it's obviously probably going to be a Microsoft exclusive, so Xbox and PC.
More likely, yeah.
But I'm just very excited for the future of that franchise, and I can't wait to play more.
Yeah. So for mine, it has gone
Star Wars, right?
Back and forth. I have been very much debating this. But honestly, since I got my hands on it, I could not stop playing it and could not stop singing its praises. Control. So I agree with IGN's take on that sense. I fell in love with that game. I really liked Jesse as a character. I just liked everything that Remedy did. They really kind of took me by surprise with how they went at this game. Yep. It was just a one-of-a-kind experience, in my opinion. It felt so natural to control her in psychic opportunities or psionic opportunities with everything that she's able to do. And I thought it was so well written. Characters I actually kind of cared for. There's still so much post-game stuff that I've been trying to get to when I can, but it's very difficult to do.
Yep.
DLC's coming out too, but I really...
For some people.
Oh, yeah. But this game was awesome to have.
Yeah, absolutely. So I completely agree with that, and I hope that Remedy continues to get support from publishers and they can build whatever the heck they want, because they've made great games.
Yeah, I honestly, if I'm being real with you, I just want them bought by somebody now, because it scares me that Control did not do commercially well to where the point everyone keeps talking about it.
And Quantum Break didn't do that well either.
And so I don't want that team to go away. I want them to keep making games.
Yep.
So if Sony or Microsoft, I don't care. Yep. Somebody buy them so they can stay open.
Agreed. I mean, we'd even take EA buying them.
Okay, I wouldn't do that. They'll just buy them to shut them down and say, hey, don't make another one.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's the end of our show. Appreciate you guys sticking with us through the end of the year. That's our Game of the Year show. Remember, you can join us each and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Podcast PXN. And I believe that wraps it up for the 2019 stuff. We'll only be talking about 2020 from here on out.
I can't reference anything that I've ever done before 2020.
Never again.
So Halo Master Chief doesn't exist.
Maybe not that. So, much love and keep on gaming.
Deuces.